Welcome back to the Alec Lewis Show. I am your host, Alec Lewis. Pumped to be back again for episode 5. We have Yahoo Sports' Nate Tice here today, and it should be a very fun conversation. He is the son of former Vikings coach Mike Tice, so I think you guys will enjoy just the history and how he sees the game. So it should be pretty fun. I'm recording this on Monday, August 5th. You guys are probably listening on Tuesday. The Vikings have had 2 off days essentially in a row. I know Sunday night they had some team event stuff. I believe there was a mariachi band, some of the staff dressing up as kind of a team event. So it sounded like they had a good time in there at the facility, and maybe we'll talk a little bit more about that in time. But team was off Sunday and Monday, closed to the media, so we will be back out there Tuesday, and then should have J.J. McCarthy, the quarterback you guys have probably heard of, talking Wednesday to the media and talking about his first couple weeks of camp and the potential preseason game and what that might entail. So should be fun for you guys. I have been mostly working ahead on stuff. I don't know if you saw last Friday, but I had a story on Will Reichard, the Vikings rookie kicker from Alabama, who hails about 15 miles from where I grew up in Birmingham. Pretty emotional backstory, and I think when you read about it at The Athletic, you'll probably understand a little bit of what has made this guy who he is. So check that out if you have not read that thus far. I've also got a story running Tuesday about a potential offensive evolution of the Vikings and where that derives from. So it's formational. It's very in the weeds football, but I think you guys listening to this will like that. So check that out over at The Athletic. Non-football related stuff. I have been watching the show on Apple, Cowboy Cartel. Absolutely crazy. I did not know anything about this story involving the FBI, involving horse racing. This is not an ad. I keep doing this, but I'm pumping up these random restaurant shows. If you guys like documentaries, this one was kind of wild. Just absolutely threw me for a loop. So I recommend that. Other than that, it's been a lot of football. Working ahead on some feature stuff. I think you guys will enjoy down the line. But really had fun with Nate Tice. He was in Minnesota pretty recently checking out training camp and the quarterbacks, Sam Darnold, J.J. McCarthy. We got into both of those guys. We talked a little bit about the running game. Had a little conversation about trends across the league right now, which I think you'll find interesting. So, thank you guys for listening. As always, I am open to recommendations, suggestions, tips, comments. Really open to liking and subscribing. If you guys know how to do that on Spotify, Apple, or YouTube, where you can find the Alec Lewis Show. We're also on the iHeartRadio app, which is a representative of The Fan here in Minnesota. So check that out on Amazon if you're a podcast listener to there. So having fun with this thing as we expected. Without further ado, let's jump into Nate Tice.
Great to be on. I missed you in person, not so much you actually. I saw you, but missed the show in person. So I'm glad I got to kind of rally back and catch you on the back end when I'm back in Vegas and my home turf now. You know, that's still a away game for me right now is Minnesota. So I'm back on my home
you were
turf,
in Minnesota
great to be
at
here.
the end of last week, and you had a parking we were going to record in person, but what happened? Like you had the parking attendant was giving he didn't know who you were apparently.
It was it was some self-forced errors. I will say some user errors here. This was me going on autopilot. You, as you know, but explain it to people listening, you apply for credentials when you go to a training camp tour. When I went to Arizona right before this, they were kind of like, hey, don't worry about it. And then when I was talking to the people at Minnesota who were very great, they do a great job. I used to know Bobby Hagan, but I know Bobby Hagan's not so much doing it, but other guys there. But they kind of were just like, okay, at the bottom of the email, when I asked that I was coming, they said, hey, and then email these people for credentials or through this link. I just missed it. And then I'm pulling up the day before the day of practice. I'm like going to meet with you, but I wanted to make sure I was there super early just to make sure it was all good. I'm going through the email and I'm like, oh shoot, I never applied. And so yeah, and there no fault of their own. It took them a minute to send me the email to get me through and everything, but it was some user error, and then getting on the field turned into I
It's
didn't
important.
have
Yeah.
a press pass apparently, which is a thing apparently. I didn't know I had to put that in my hat like I was like a 1930s reporter. But I had the credential and everything, but it didn't have my name on it. So then that caused an issue because anyone could get one of those credentials apparently. And so they got that, showed my insurance card to show that I worked at Yahoo. So it was good to be back in Minnesota. Everybody was very friendly, very Minnesota nice, of course. But some issues getting onto my first practice. Second day was great, went smooth, no issues at all.
We'll get into your visit in a little bit. I should probably. I mean, really, I appreciate the quarterback in you taking the responsibility on yourself. It's so the receiver ran the wrong route, the offensive line didn't block, but you're owning it yourself. I appreciate that. I should introduce you too. You are. You work for Yahoo Sports, which is a place that I interned at and had a lot of fun at. You also host a podcast, Football 301, with Charles McDonald and Matt Harmon, two guys who do a really dang good job.
Yes.
We'll get back to Vikings really quick because the people are here for that. But have you been to those Yahoo offices out in Playa Vista, California?
No, I have not, but I'm going to soon.
Yeah.
I'm very within this month.
So my internship, I was there every day, and they had incredible food every day. I mean, I'd wake up. They had the best cafeteria, spa water, chicken Caesar salad, homemade every day. It was you'll enjoy it out there. But you also have a Minnesota connection, so we'll get into this. Your dad was a former coach of this team that I cover now. How old were you when you were here with that, and how far back does the Minnesota tie go for you? How close of a connection do you feel with this place?
Yeah. So it was my childhood team. Even more, my dad played for the Seahawks for a long time, but he also played for Washington and Minnesota. But he wrapped up his career with Minnesota, 2 different stints under Denny Green as a player. And so that's where my early memories are formed, is when my dad this last season with the Vikings, I want to say it was 94. He kind of came back midway through the season, and I was 5 years old then. So that's kind of when you remember some memories actually. And that's where I remember him visiting him in his apartment in Minnesota, because he was only there for a few months of the season, going to Christmas there. And then this is just how different the times were, especially in the 90s, and also how Denny Green was. He went from finished playing to 6 months later, he was his tight ends coach. And with no GA, no college work, no quality control as they have it now. Quality control was not a thing back then. That was invented right around that time, basically. And so he just was immediately tight ends coach, the year after O-line coach. And then a few years after that, he succeeded Denny, was the head coach, and on he went from there. So I moved to Minnesota full time when I was 7, so in 2nd grade, and then my dad was fired my junior year, but I stayed my senior, so 7 through 17. But I still consider myself more Seattle-ish, because I just even my accent a little bit is more of that. But I still have a lot of ties there. And right as high school ended, though, I haven't moved back. I didn't live back, but my sister lived in St. Paul for a little bit. So, and I was even back then, or the 4 days I was in Minnesota, 3 days, I was hanging with some high school friends.
That's awesome.
So it's I still have ties, even if I haven't been there for a while. Yeah. So but it's surreal going from Winter Park to that.
Well, I don't know
campus,
the Winter Park, so
what
do you
think
of?
They have?
Yeah,
It's not fair. If I'm being honest, it shows the difference between the old Vikings and what the Wolves have done.
The facility is incredible.
It's insane. It's insane. It's world class. Not even it's insane. It's world class of any sport, of any kind of business, anything. You just mentioned the Yahoo campus, campus was just as impressive, I'm sure. It's and again, people there are great, and this is why I hit so much security. At Winter Park, I was talking to Kevin Seaver about this. You can just go through the loading docks and just walk around the hallways back in the day, and just hey, get some interviews. It was a different world back then, and the weight room was split between 2 rooms. It was a duplex. Naturally, it was a room, and not a big one, and then a hallway, which was by the video room and the staircase, and then there was another room, and then there was the indoor. It was different. And then I was talking to some people there. Shows you the difference in the NFL about each team is so wildly different. How much their facilities, how crazy good or bad.
What was I mean, so you were here for training camp. You've bounced around a bunch of different spots. Like what? I mean, maybe just holistically and not just Viking specific. Like, has there been anything in some of your spots where you're on the road talking to coaches, you're like, this keeps coming up. I don't know. This is making me think about something specifically NFL related, maybe scheme related, offense related, that you're like, it's kind of amazing this subject keeps coming up or this trend keeps coming up.
Some stuff that some people have already picked at, maybe some of the pistol stuff. And that's others have been poking at. Jordan Rodriguez. I mean, just a bunch of people have kind of noticed that trend. I think the Rams were really, because it's different ways of how people are using pistol. And pistol is the difference. It's not under center. It's not shotgun. It's the halfway in between. It's pistol. But it lets you do under center stuff from shotgun depth. That's the best way to kind of put it. And the Rams really got to it because Stafford's getting older and he doesn't want to do as much under center stuff. And it kind of helps them, but do all the run game stuff that McVay loves to do from under center. So it bridges that gap. And as more quarterbacks are shotgun from 8th grade onwards, 7th grade onwards, it's more of a comfort level, as you know, teaching old dog new tricks kind of thing. Old being 22 years old sometimes, but that's the world we're in right now. Some guys can do it, and some guys can't. So I think that's one thing that you just see naturally, and I think you're going to see an uptick of, and other people have kind of noticed that as well. I think to me, it seems like there's some emphasis on tight ends, and that's why I've been curious about, which is I think interesting because we're seeing this receiver boom in the draft and the paydays, all
salary,
these things.
Yeah.
And I think this is the zag. Salary. This is the zag. This is where you find inefficiencies draft wise for pass catchers because they're catching the football and could probably do more than maybe some number 3 receivers can. While also being cheaper, finding them later in the draft, and they can play more snaps. So I think that's just I've just noticed a couple teams, 2 teams I went to, Arizona and Minnesota, both just had some interesting tight end stuff. The Rams, who featured so many 3 receivers, are doing some more tight end stuff. And this is the ebbs and flows of the NFL. Like, this is just how it kind of goes, the zigs and zags of the NFL. So that's just something I kind of noticed a little bit of and kind of just mentioned, Well,
it's interesting you mentioned the tight end thing because I remember when they acquired TJ Hawkinson in 2022, one of the things that GM Kwesi Adofo-Mensah and head coach Kevin O'Connell talked about at that time was like, you can find a guy who can be a primary target for that $17 million AAV range, and that's at the high end of the market, or was at the time. So like, I almost wonder, listening to you say that, if Kwesi and them were ahead having those conversations back then. I don't, and maybe they were, maybe they weren't.
Hawkinson's kind of a perfect example because he's a fine blocker, but maybe not, he's not a Kittle or anything like that. And he's a good receiver, maybe not a world, altering receiver, but good. I've kind of considered him like a good number 2 in a passing tack. If he's your 3, which I think he's kind of more, that's amazing. That's like a high end 3. And people got to kind of break their brains of passing attacks can be more than just receivers. It could be tight ends. It could be a CMC, receiving back. As long as you just have 3, hopefully more weapons, that's just how you have to build it. The Lions built theirs out of a slot receiver, a rookie tight end, and a rookie running back. You can do it in different ways. And I think it's more about snap. I've looked at it as snaps played. How many snaps you play that are you affecting the game? To me, tight end's a good one anyways. That can play all snaps, can block, can be a top 3 receiver in your passing game. That's super valuable because that's 40 plus snaps they're affecting, as opposed to, shoot, I'm paying Christian Kirk $17 million. Okay, he only can line up in the slot and he only can run these routes, and we can't ask him to block because he's a negative there. That to me is a hindrance. That's, you're overpaying for a limited player, even if he's good in that.
It's kind of like a hoops,
so I think maybe that's
like a basketball. It's like I remember when I was growing up, it's like you always had to pigeonhole power forward, shooting small forward. It's like, do they really, like, what if the guy's just 6'7"? I don't really know where the hell he fits, but like he just fits and he's one of our guys, kind of deal.
It's not who you are, it's who you guard. That's the NBA adage, and that's kind of when we see it now. Like, a guy would be like, 6'7", but he's guarding a point guard, or guarding a center, Draymond Green or anything like that. Yeah, you're a center because you're guarding the 7-foot guy. So no, I think that's the same thing. It's just we have to kind of break positional designations more. It's more role designations that we have to look, especially as defenses kind of being more hybrid. There's more, safeties and linebackers are all like 220 now.
Yeah,
so who
Brian
cares?
Flores,
Like,
every
what we
player
call
on his
them, if they're
roster
gonna be in the
is
same
everything.
spots. That's to do the basketball analogy. That's the Golden State Warriors and get a bunch of swing guys, get all those 6'7" guys. All right, cool. We'll just get 5 of them, and they can just be interchangeable. So yeah, that's it's kind of been cool. It's kind of the NFL trying to figure out what to do with these college guys that are coming up. They're quicker and faster, which is good and bad. They have limitations, but they also there's.
Was
good
there
parts
anything
about them
coming
too.
to Minnesota that you're like, I want to know this, or is there anything coming out of Minnesota? It's like, I feel like this, and it could be. I mean, maybe we'll talk about the quarterback because people seem to like doing that around this league. That's just what I've learned. But I don't what comes to mind if you're thinking about what you came in wanting to figure out and what you came out feeling like you had a good handle on.
I wanted to see how Darnold did look and McCarthy, but really what interested me was how much where Jefferson was at, Justin Jefferson, where he was located on every play. That was something I kind of wanted to keep an eye on, and it was kind of like even before talking to people there, just being able to watch practice. It's like, oh yeah, you're putting him everywhere. He's the primary on every freaking play. Even if you boost the secondary receivers, let's make the primary the primary. So I love that. It was really cool to just see the defense not shy away. That was something I didn't know what to expect to see, and actually I was going to ask people, and I didn't even need to. It was like, no, they're bringing the heat. Like they practice how they play, and that was really cool. I was kind of like, oh, okay, I've never been around a defense coordinator like that, so I was like, oh, okay, that's good to know. But it was good to see, like, day 2 I was there, which was Saturday. J.J. McCarthy beat the blitz one time. That's a really good play, even if it's a 7-yard gain.
Is that the red zone little nickel blitz thing, or maybe something different?
It was something right down the pipe that came at them. They were about midfield during a team period. And it must have been. It was like they would go first, second, third down kind of period. And so it was a 3rd and like 5, and there's a blitz right. Some fan posted it. I should quote tweet it, but it's it's not good on the offensive line to miss it. I'll just say that. That's the secondary part of this. But the first part is McCarthy bailed him out and did it right away. It was anticipated reaction as opposed to just reaction, and that was good. Like, he was like, I might have to drift here. Oh, I have to drift, and I threw it. So I guess learning for me, like, I could see some stuff at practice I didn't even have to like ask, which was good. It's kind of like, okay, he's picking up some little intangible stuff.
It's funny you say it. It's like cool. Everything in training camp, man, that guy looked good. But does that mean the other guy looked bad? Like, it's like it's every.
That's hard. That's why I'm like, wait till preseason. I know, it's like, even for me going to practices, because I've learned, is like, just take it all with a grain of salt. It's just like the Cardinals offense looked really good. I'm excited about the Cardinals defense, but they're not going to be that good. Like, they're probably going to be bottom half, but they'll be interesting. But it's like, that's probably why the offense looked pretty good. Like,
you mentioned Sam Darnold in there. And I think you've spoken about him on your own, on the 301 podcast. And I've seen like some tweets back and forth with Mina, and it feels like there's like a Darnold hive type thing. But I mean, what do you expect? What do you feel about him in this situation?
Colt.
And then I guess, what did you see that made you feel that way or didn't? And it's just training camp, so maybe it doesn't matter.
Yeah, he's kind of a lovable loose cannon, and I love that. And I love it. He has a lot of traits that I'm always going to fall for. He's got a nice arm. He can create a little bit and run around. He's got good size, and he's got what I like in quarterbacks. He's got some balls. Like, he will throw hard. He will attempt hard passes. It's dinged him in the past in poor situations. It really has. And that's hard to come back from, because then your confidence gets down. You guys see some of those completed. You guys see some of those maybe 50-50, maybe even 40-60 balls. Like, can I win a coin flip? And I think starting off his career with the Jets it's kind of funny, like, even looking back on some stats, like his stats were poor, even underlying stuff. But even looking at some of the quarterbacks that came after him, including the guy who replaced him, Zach Wilson, he was even worse. And it's kind of, I think we forget that. It's like he was bad, but it wasn't like this. These are like historical outliers. Darnold was more merely below average to poor. And when I've seen stretches of him starting in Carolina at first it was kind of a mirage. Then there was the whole Baker stuff, but then he started in the back half of the year, his last year there.
Ben McAdoo played a pretty big role in what into success. And Sam's talked about that a little bit, but I'll let you keep.
That makes sense. He's a streamliner guy. Like, even though he has the gigantic call sheets, that actually kind of helps. Like, because he has such a big menu, he can kind of go, you're good at this, this, and this. And that's a quarterback coach. I almost said the G word. A quarterback coach kind of talent is that you kind of narrow the list for the quarterback to like, you're really good at this. Some quarterbacks is everything, so don't worry about it. But some quarterbacks, it's like, he's only good at this concept. So let's find 15 ways to get to this or more than that. Darnold, to me, it's that he's best cross progressing, where he can just go 1 to 2, the check down. And when I watched, who's a really good, I would just mention that narrowing the menu to what his quarterbacks are good at, Kevin O'Connell. So that's why this is a good passing game coach for him, a guy that played the position, the best line he's ever had in front of him, easily. And I would even include the San Fran line. I know Trent Williams is phenomenal, but the rest of the line's not that good. But from left to right, Kyle Shanahan does a great job of hiding it, but the best receiver, Jefferson, that he's going to have, he had DJ Moore, but that Carolina stuff ecosystem was just so poor. I think this is just the best system that I'm not saying, oh yeah, this guy's going to Pro Bowl to the moon. It's just that he's going to have some high highs because he's going to push the ball. You see it in practice, play action, bombs away. And it's going to be awesome. It's going to be fun. Like, you guys are going to have a lot of fun watching it. It's just that he'll get punished sometimes. I just think that we'll see more sustainable stuff where it's not just so up and down. That's more like, okay, there's times that maybe we can run it. Maybe we can manufacture some stuff and not put it all on Sam and he's going to have some rushing touchdowns too, which I'm excited to see because he can move a little bit.
Athleticism is something, talking to people like who have been around him and then watching him earlier. Like, I mean, I guess I remember some of the USC stuff, but athletically, I'm kind of like, he moves well. And like, he's athletic for his size in a way that I'm not sure I fully expected, but it sounds like you've known that was a trait within his skill set.
Him and McCarthy, they're both loose athletes. They're very like easy movers. Like, I'm jealous. But it's I would run. I made it look hard. They do not. But like, you even in the practice, I don't see it. I don't want to spoil his hand, but they dialed up some like zone read stuff and some quarterback read stuff in the red zone, and that's when there's a time period. It was kind of a meme, kind of a joke, but he was like leading the league in rushing touchdowns. Like, he was the most devastating weapon in the league was Sam Darnold's legs for like 5 weeks a couple of years ago. But I'm not saying he's going to be Lamar or Josh Allen, but again, it's more than the Vikings have had. Even with Mullins back there, even with all these other guys, Hall, they had the spot start.
Josh
with,
Dobbs, like totally different deal. I mean, that was like a mirage of Dobbs my mind. I typed the Pastronaut today, and in the story, I'm like, did that exist? It was kind of, yeah.
That existed. Oh my God. It has several chapters to it too. But yeah, just seeing, he'll know how to use it, and that's why I'm excited. Like, either if McCarthy has to play too, McCarthy can run a little bit too. He's not as big as Sam, but he still has wheels, and he still just, it's not the crazy, they're going to get 12 rushes. It's just those two that like go impact, for like 7 yards,
like high impact.
Those high leverage situations, which is like, I think, needed from quarterbacks today. You have to be able to have that in your bag, even if it's not amazing. Right. Like, Jordan Love is not the fastest guy in the world, but he can do a zone read. And that's, I think, so needed in the NFL.
We talked about this a little bit while you were here about J.J. McCarthy and your pre-draft kind of eval. And I know you study these guys a lot. You watch the film of all these guys. I remember reading stuff you did at The Athletic, and then even once you got to Yahoo about Drake May and just the entire class. I mean, what did you feel about J.J. McCarthy preceding the draft, and where would you have kind of pegged him among that group of guys? I don't know if you ranked them specifically, but what did you think?
Yeah, I ended up with May 1A, Caleb Williams 1B, and then I had a gap though to Jane Daniels, and it ended up being like kind of a, if I had more, again, balls, I'd probably gone 3A, 3B with Daniels McCarthy. I ended up liking. I still like, that's the thing. It was like still good grades. That's what's so funny when someone's like, you had him 3. It's like, yeah. And I said, draft him in the first round. Like, both things can be true. It was that with watching McCarthy, it was that even though a game, say Penn State, this is the game I always keep coming back to. He only threw the ball 10 times, 9 times, 12 times, whatever it was. And they ran the ball more because their tackles couldn't block anybody. That was the game that got the DN from Penn State paid this offseason. Got him drafted high. But why they were running the ball so much was because they could. And also because McCarthy can handle a professional offense, meaning like he can actually handle checks and kills. And the team trusted him to do that in a high stress scenario on the road, even in situations like backed up. And there's a 3-clip sequence. I want to say I tweeted this, but I'll retweet it just for posterity's sake. For the fans, for everybody, is that it's 3 runs in a row. He's not even throwing the ball here, but it's quarterbacking. It's him. They have 2 plays in the huddle. He's getting from one play to the other, and he is communicating to each offensive lineman, taking his time and doing it calm. And that matters for everybody else, because otherwise it's the quarterback is like panicking, his voice is breaking like that. There's human element here. And so that's what I kind of really encouraged. I know that sounds like little things, but it was like those little moments. I was like, okay, you kind of get it. Like you get how to run this. And when you see he has a strong arm, I would say I put in the good tier, maybe touching very good, and maybe why I like May a little bit more. May's like excellent to me, but I still think McCarthy's well above the threshold of good. He has a live arm, he's a loose athlete, he can run a little bit. He was a little skinny for my liking, but he's young, and so that's why that was the difference between him and Daniels for me. He still had a frame I thought that he can grow into maybe a little bit, and apparently he looked like he gained maybe about 10 pounds.
Yeah, he's pretty good. I mean, you're right in that Darnold looks a little more like filled out. Like JJ just looks more like a kid. I don't know how. But he is 21, so I think to your point, like there's reason to project.
That's fine.
There's reason to believe that you can project.
Yes. And this is why you look at arm length and hand size and just frame and shoulders. And it's like, just like a kid, like you see a kid going through puberty and you're like, okay, that kid's going to fill out. Like that kid's, like some kids are just gangly like that. And he put on water weight at the combine. But it's still a show that he can touch that. And to me, that was more realistic. He just, to me, has to get to 215. He doesn't have to be 225. He doesn't have to be huge. Kirk Cousins was always like 198 playing back there. So, and he's a better athlete. So that's like the things I want to improve. But it made sense why a guy like KOC would like him, and these kind of coaches from this tree, because he was a good athlete. He can throw on the move, and he would throw it over the middle. And to me, that's what they love out of guys, on time over the middle, I should say. And so yeah, it made sense that he ended up like with a coach like this, and I think a good situation to grow.
Yeah. Did you sing him in person? I mean, beyond the size, like in terms of him ripping him, you talked about the blitz 7-yard type throw, but did anything else watching him in person stand out to you?
Yeah, he had a couple of nice sideline throws where he really hummed it in there. I would say, and maybe in a negative sense, I could see some of the growth of where he's maybe taking an extra hitch and just kind of like, oh yeah, there's the rookie, and this is every rookie quarterback known to man. There is none that have done it perfect. I am telling you. So it was funny for me to kind of like see one good play and then see the next play where it's like 2 hitches, he runs. I was like, that would have been a sack, but it's
right.
It's like just that's
playing quarterback in your first training camp.
He's trying to progress, and it's just, that was pretty funny for me to kind of like get that kind of wash on me, kind of go like, oh yeah, that's how it goes sometimes. But I thought the arm was I thought he was taller in person. Like, obviously I get the heights and weights and everything, but he was taller, and it's like, he's behind a big offensive line at Michigan, so it's like one of those, you don't even get to see him actually stand out. But he was taller, but again, just the frame. He'll add 10 pounds, but he needs to.
It's funny you mentioned the Brian Flores letting it rip. Like, I have a thing, like every time he walks out to practice after everyone else, and it's this sunglasses, flat bill right above his eyes, this slow walk where it's just like, I'm about to wreck you guys every single day. And you're like, can he just take one day? Like, I imagine for Kevin and them, it's probably like, can you just run cover? Can we just figure out if we can run dagger against this? It's like, no, it's relentless. So the fact that you noticed that and identified it and then thought it, like, you liked it the way it is, it's very interesting because we see it every day.
Yeah. It's some serious heat. I actually went to 2 of the craziest ones, because Nick Rawlis, who's a Minneapolis native, he's good too. I really like what he's doing, but he's wacko too. His scheme is nuts too. So I went from boom back to back, and I was just like, oh, these guys are nuts. Like, they're doing everything, and that's where the league's going though. That's what is. It's the pull it back,
like yo-yoing,
push and
almost.
pull it back,
Yeah,
I should say, where it's like, yeah, we're blitzing everybody, or we're blitzing nobody, or we're faking it. We're doing the big brother move, or I'm not hitting you, I'm not hitting you, and then I'm hitting you, and what it's the Darnold. Remember, he saw ghosts against this type of defense. This type of defense makes you play quarterback. So as a quarterback coach, I would freaking love it. As an offensive line coach, it'd be exhausting. But again, you're getting reps at the hardest stuff. Once they get into the season,
so you buy into that.
Gonna be easy.
You buy into that
because you're going to get play. I would. Probably O'Connell at times was probably like, "Oh man, can we just see some normal spot drop stuff?" But I think playing a defense like this makes you play against where I against a defense that I think is going to get copied more than not. So and it's harder than what you're going to face. It's easier to go from this and then play against a cover 3 team like the Packers might be, or the Bears who are zone coverage every play, or the Lions who are going to be a lot of man, but they also bring a ton of blitzes too. That is going to be an easier adjustment for these guys getting into the season as opposed to the other way around, going like, oh shoot, we got to work on the offensive line, got to work on our, how we pass off these blitzes. The running backs got so much work. Oh my! Like I've never seen running backs this week have to pick up more blitzes than the Cardinals and Vikings running backs. Like they have to do so much work because they have to pick up blitzers every play. But it's great. That's better than the other thing because those guys don't get worked sometimes when they're playing kind of more softer defenses. I go back to
when the Vikings played the Bears the first time last year, and Justin Fields, I believe, got hurt in that game. But it was the first of what I believe was some real serious issues for the Bears from a running back pass pro perspective. And I remember listening to JT O'Sullivan, yes. I watched his stuff a lot, and he was just like freaking out about the pass protection, and it popped up over and over. But to your point, it's like Brian Flores will expose that. Like if you are seeking whether that gets exposed or not, he is a guy who can do that. My last one for you, and it's just general, but non-quarterback related. Like what are you most interested to see maybe with this Vikings team this year? And I don't know if you might say the run game specifically, you might say defensively cornerback, but just something that like a person who has studied football as much as you have, just are interested in kind of broadly with this team.
Oh man, this one's hard because it actually is both sides of the ball I'm excited about. I'm excited just this offense, no matter who's at quarterback, because I think I want to see the layers added. They have so much returning personnel, and even guys that are backups are returning. That's where you add layers to an offense, and I think that O'Connell is one of the better ones that is going to try to do stuff. So like that, like overall, you kind of tip my hand to it. Like if I had to narrow it down, it would be the run game because I could see where this passing game's going. I could see the bombs away stuff, but that has to start with the run game. And what's hindered this offense in the past is not being able to run the ball more than secondary receivers or lack of a tight end pass catching tight end. It's just having, Madison back there, or, 2 years ago, they couldn't really felt like they couldn't block much and the backs weren't helping out as much either. So I thought that I want to see the next step there. Jones brings a lot of juice. Chandler brings a lot of juice. That's a lot of juice on a game with an offensive passing game that can bring a lot of juice. That's a lot of explosive plays, I think. But I have to see it, and it's just, I think it's going to be good, but I don't want to get ahead of myself. Like, it's like, all right, just everyone get there healthy. And I just want to see this all before I kind of say that, but this is an interesting offense that can be sneaky top 10-ish, top 12-ish. If Darnold hits, if everything goes how I think it could, but that's the more optimistic. And even defense, it's just, what are you doing now? I want to see the front. I want to see guys like Van Ginkel, because this couldn't be more of a perfect fit, because he's done this kind of stuff before. Yeah, so guys like that, it's just adding. It's so really, if I had to shorten this, too long didn't read. I want to see the growth from both units because they have so much returning personnel. So I want to see what layers are they adding. And I think
offensively,
cool.
I mean, the run game,
really cool.
And I fixated on it, and I think it's very interesting. But part of me does wonder if it is just as simple as you have Aaron Jones, who has juice at a level that Alexander Madison doesn't have, or if it is more of a schematic, front personnel type of circumstance. And I don't know, it's so hard to I've said this before. It's if you were to create a blame pie, I think you guys might have used that, but it's how much blame are you allocating to each facet? And is it primarily the running back? And maybe it is. And I guess we'll find out. maybe they do more from a schematic standpoint, utilizing duo from pistol or something like that. I guess we'll see. But it's that aspect to me, I've just ruminated over probably too much this summer.
Right. I think they're trying. Like, I think they identified what hindered them. They're trying to help it. Ingram's not my favorite in the world, but like he did improve. Like he went from unplayable to I'll just put it at that. But again, it's continuity, and
Sure.
that helps a lot with offensive line. And that's where it just, to me, even if it's not, it's more of, some of its parts kind of thing, where it's like, okay, all these guys,
Yeah.
thankfully they have two awesome tackles as well. Like that, like, it's not like these guys are all B minuses and C pluses. Like you have like an A and an A minus, I think, out there, on either side. So that helps too. And even if, Bradbury's been kind of up and down, I think, he's shown more now, where you can work with him. So to me, that's where I see growth there. But I just saw Madison missing so many holes that it's just like, that's where Aaron Jones doesn't. So it's like that even if Jones plays 10, 11 games, it's going to be great. And I just think Chandler, even if it's again, if you're going to be wrong, be fast. And that's where it feels like with Chandler. At least he brings juice, even if it's like not going to hit the right hole sometimes. Has McBride done anything?
Nothing
McBride?
crazy.
I actually didn't really see him.
I mean, really, they've had Kane Nwangwu as kind of that third back in some ways, and Dwayne, who is a UAB guy, and being from Birmingham, I've been like when he first was drafted, I think I wrote a 3,000 word expose about him being the greatest running back of all time. People joked with me about it, but it scheme fit, and then you watch some of those college clips, and you're just like, what is going on? Him ping-ponging off guys. Yeah. But no, it'll be interesting. It hasn't been a ton. But question-wise, that's all I had. Appreciate you hopping on. I'm glad we got to do it, even if it wasn't in person. We caught up enough in the sun as I was scorching, as you can see on my forehead. Yeah. It's 3 colors, so it's good. Yeah.
It's brutal. It was brutal. I know. I just had a basal cell thing taken out too, and so I'm just like, every time I'm in sun, I'm just like, I found every sunscreen that they had available, because the Viking staff is so nice that they had sunscreen available. But I found them wherever they were hidden. I found each one of those because I was spraying the whole time.
Thank you, Nate. Appreciate you hopping on. Be good. We'll stay in touch. And for those listening, check out the 301 pod over at Yahoo and read Nate's work. Really good people over there at that place. So Nate is another one of them. Thanks, Nate.
Thanks for having me. That was great.
And that'll do it for episode 5 of the Alec Lewis Show. That was Nate Tice. Had a ton of fun. I loved his mention of Flores being absolutely relentless on the practice field. It's something we see every day. And I've always thought it was pretty interesting. So to see Nate notice that was pretty cool. And it was fun to talk about, as was really everything quarterback and scheme related. Nate is a former quarterback. He played at UCF in Wisconsin, so has a lot of familiarity. He worked for the Falcons when Kyle Shanahan was there. So you're getting some insight from a guy who really knows it, really understands it, and has been generous enough over time with me to kind of provide tidbits and give me some analysis, some understanding of what I'm watching kind of on a daily, a week-to-week basis. So had a lot of fun bringing that to you guys. We'll have a lot more, have another guest later this week that I'm looking forward to. Let me know what else you guys are looking for, what else you guys want. Like I said at the top, I'm open to anything. Think we probably need to hop in and do another Q&A pretty soon. I got to host something, give you guys 30 minutes unfiltered of my ridiculousness. So we'll try to bring that sooner or later. In the meantime, enjoy this week. It's a game week. Like, I'm absolutely stoked for that. So excited about it. Looking forward to having some action to analyze, and we'll have much more for you guys here at the Alec Lewis Show feed on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple. And then also at The Athletic, where I do my day job covering the Vikings. Thank you guys so much for listening. We'll be back soon. Have a great week. That's the Alec Lewis Show. Appreciate it.